Previously on In the Bush, we learned about several wild edibles.
We're going to start with your basic old cattail
Until we get down to the stalk itself. And that is the tender part. Right in here. Here we go. Yeah, see how that broke real clean and real easy?
This tree here is known as the Steppius tuius.
Oh look, it's got a bud on it now.
Ooh. These are black locusts. Black locust flowers are totally 100% edible. Very tender.
This right here is wild carrot, also known as Queen Anne's lace. This is very edible.
These are known as cleavers. We call them cleavers because they'll stick to you. So behind me here is a big, huge patch of wild rhubarb. It looks a lot like rhubarb. It's got that reddish tint, big, huge leaves.
This is your common violet. It's totally edible. This stuff here is called lamb's quarters.
Well, right behind me here, we have some black raspberries. There's tons and tons and tons of wood sorrel here. Citrusy, very good on a salad.
The blackberries are starting to come on.
This is elderberry. I'm sure you've all seen these before. I'm standing in front of a giant patch of milkweed. All right, here we go. My first time eating milkweed. Ooh.
Just kidding.
So here it is. Here's the plant that I've been fascinated with for about 2 years because I stumbled across a YouTube channel called Haphazard Homestead. Awesome stuff, all about wild edibles, a lot of wild edible stuff on there. This lady eats, I mean, every kind of wild edible there is. Anyhow, they grow and harvest pokeweed. But pokeweed is poisonous. You have to boil the leaves. So you harvest the tender leaves. I've got to do more research on this one before I try it. I'm not going to be trying this probably during this video or even maybe this year yet. I'm still just a little gun shy when it comes to this plant because it is poisonous and you can get sick. But they used to can these. You used to be able to buy, they call it salet, S-A-L-E-T, and they called it poke salet, and you could buy it in a can in the grocery store. Farmers just stopped harvesting it and bringing it in, so they just don't sell it anymore. But I think it's pretty simple. You pick it, you boil it for like 10 minutes, throw out the water, and then you boil it again for another 10 minutes, throw out the water. I think you do it like 3 times. And then you just serve it like, like spinach, cooked spinach, because by then it'll be, wilted and, soggy. So you put a little salt and pepper on it and just eat it like spinach. I'm going to try it. I don't know if I'm going to do it this year or not. So I know the younger the plants are, the earlier in the season, the less toxin that they have. So this plant's getting mature enough where it's starting to get the berries on it. Now, you'll see these plants, they look like blueberries. They'll have a big, huge thing. A lot of this is used for ink, for writing. If you were in a survival situation, you could take the juice from these berries and put it into a feather fountain pen setup somehow, and you could write a letter. This is a great example of a pokeberry plant in all stages. Here it's still flowering. Here we have the green berries.
And here we have the ripe berries. Anyway, poisonous. Don't eat those.
Good old pokeweed. But it's not really something you should be scared of. I know I'm a little scared of it still. But the thing is, you just have to cook it properly. You wouldn't eat improperly cooked chicken, now would you? So, really, you shouldn't be scared of this. You just have to know how to cook it properly. So I'm learning as much as I can, and I want to be confident with these wild edibles before I do anything that might hurt me. This is nightshade. This is poisonous. This is known to make sick or kill cows and horses. If this gets baled into your hay, you can have a problem. This is a cousin to the tomato plant. Tomato is actually a species or a variety of nightshades. Purple clover. So, all clover is edible. The 3-leaf clovers out of your yard are actually edible. The white clover is edible. Purple clover. What we used to like to do when we were kids is we used to like to pluck these little things out, and if you take just the very tip, I know it's hard to focus in on, but if you take the very tips of these, there's a little sweet juice on them. That's just something we like to do as a kid. There's not much there, but if you find a big, fat, dark purple one, it has a lot more. It's kind of a honey tasting, which makes sense because that's where honey obviously gets a lot of its sweetness from, is the clover. Pretty cool. So many things you can eat. Okay, we're going to take a little pause here so I can tell you all about how fascinating the clover plant really is. Clover is in the bean family, and every species of clover is edible. Every part of the clover plant, including the root, is edible. You can eat clover raw, but it is actually best to cook the clover if you're going to eat a large amount because it's just easier on your digestive system. So you can put it in soups, stews, and you can saute it in different things. But you can also dry it and grind it into a flour, and that can be used to make different sorts of fritters and pancakes and breads. And you can also use that as a spice. So there are multiple uses for clover. A big factor about clover is it's high in protein. So if you're in a survival situation, protein can be hard to come by. So clover is a great source. I apologize for the wind. I'm going to try to get an external microphone with a windsock to try to cut down on wind and improve the audio quality of my footage. Anyhow, I noticed this plant the other day. I don't know if I put my hat on the phone, if it'll help cut back on the wind. So I was back here the other day, and I noticed a plant that looked like milkweed, but I knew it wasn't milkweed. I was like, what is this? It's just definitely not milkweed. It's got a red stem, you know. Sure enough, like later that night or the next day, I'm watching YouTube that night, and I see a video, and it says dogbane, milkweed, you know, mistaken for milkweed often or whatever, or milkweed look-alike. Sure enough, that's what it is. Anyway, sure enough, that's what it is. They call it dogbane. It's very poisonous to dogs. It's poisonous to people too. You don't want to eat it. But they call it Indian hemp because its fibrous material is good for making things out of. Let me show you. For one, it's just really strong, like when you try to pull on it. But if you take the leaves, these thinner pieces, you can slide them right off. I noticed this the other day. I was playing around with it. But you could slide it right off. And this too has the milky substance in it, the latex, so it could easily be mistaken for milkweed. But anyway, you could weave. The other day I weaved like 3 of these together, and you can make your own cordage. There's a lot of different things. They use them for bowstrings, so maybe we're gonna have to get into some of that. That would be pretty cool, I gotta say. So dogbane, Indian hemp, whatever you want to call it. All right, we're back here at the old house location, and we're lucky in our area. We have lots of walnut trees, and walnuts are a great source of fat. And when you're living off the land and you're eating nothing but greens, you're not going to be able to get the fats that you need. So That's where you need to incorporate nuts and, of course, fish and any sort of animal fat you can get. But nuts are a great source of fats. That's a walnut, and so they're laying on the ground all over here. And they do have a green shell that's kind of hard to bust into, so they take a little bit of effort. You probably spend more calories getting into them than what you get out of them, but nuts are actually very high in calorie density. So whenever you're foraging, if you can find any type of nuts, that's why it's in trail mix and stuff, because it's light, but it's a lot of calories. Well, we're back here at the Windy Cedars today, hanging out at an American elm tree. These, little do people know that the American elm leaves are edible. They're tender, kind of tasteless, pretty decent. The American elm, the best leaves are the ones on the ends and the daintier. When it comes to eating leafy greens or any sort of wild edible greens, the daintier leaves are going to be the most tender and the least bitter. All right, well, we're back in my kitchen again, and yesterday Adrian from My Morel Madness came by and brought me a whole shoebox full of chicken of the woods. This is chicken of the woods mushroom. Now this is the other chicken of the woods mushroom. It's called like Latiporius cincinnatus. I don't know if I said that correctly, but she found nearly like 70 pounds of it. And this stuff is absolutely delicious. It's absolutely a delicious wild edible. Now, I barely delve into mushrooms when it comes to wild edibles for obvious reasons. I always consult with her first. She's got a YouTube channel. It's called My Morel Madness. She's been out here several times, walking around looking for different mushrooms. She even helped me pinpoint locations where morels would grow. I am pretty confident at identifying morel mushrooms. But these different kinds of mushrooms, I always, before I would dare eat anything, I would have her look at it in person. But anyway, she brought me this, and she found a ton of it. So what I'm going to do is kind of show you here how we're going to kind of clean this up and prepare it for so we can fix it at a later date. So these are the real tender parts. These little, oh, there's words for them. But the stem is a little more tough and a little more fibrous. So I'm going to cut just these good parts off of the stem, kind of like so. And then I'm going to save the stems, and I'm going to make mushroom stock with the stems. Now these parts, again, you'd find some dirt. You might just have to wash them off. What I really enjoy is to dice it up or slice it up like chickens, like strips of chickens like you'd put on a fajita. So I like to go like this. Nice and thin, that way, because you want to kind of cook these crispy. That's how she likes to cook them anyway. I mean, you can leave a little bit of a bite to them, but she actually puts them in a dry pan first before she adds any oil and actually cooks some of the moisture out of them first. I'm simply going to throw them in a freezer bag, Ziploc bag, and freeze them for a later date. They'll do all right, but you want to eat them before too long or they'll get freezer burned. I decided I'm going to go ahead and fry some up. I'm a little bit hungry, and I just really want to show you for the video how to cook this stuff up. So we cut it into strips. Going to put it in a dry pan and cook some of the moisture out of it. And then we'll be adding a little olive oil and a little of my SPG seasoning. The only thing that's left to do is enjoy. So good. I've shown chicken in the woods before on In the Bush. Episode 28, Chicken of the Woods, in the Woods. But one of the cool things, it's hard to get close, but one of the cool things is it's just like chicken, hence its name. But it's just like meat on the inside. I don't know if that'll focus. It's just like meat. I mean, it's got the same exact sort of stringy texture that like a cooked chicken breast would have. The long strings of meat, except with that mushroomy flavor. So it's just a win-win. And I do believe there's quite a few health benefits. Once you make it into these strips and fry these, you can put them in the fridge later. You can put them on top of the salad. You could put them on top of pasta. The sky's the limit. Anything you would do with, you know, grilled chicken breast strips, you could do the same exact thing with these. You can make tacos, quesadillas, fajitas, you name it. And it grows all around us in the woods. Welcome back to the bush. It is now August. It's the end of August. And behind me, the elderberries are ripe. So we're going to pick some elderberries, what's left. As you can see, the birds have beat me to probably the majority of them. We're going to get what we can. And then I'm going to show you how to prepare them in the house. Elderberries need to be cooked. Otherwise, they can create some discomfort. So I thought this would be appropriate for this video. Today, the step 2 is going to be a forage kombucha. Forage lemon ginger kombucha. I've been saving it for this. Woo-hoo-hoo. Ooh, that is so refreshing on a hot summer day while I happen to be foraging. So we're going to get in here. I've never picked elderberries before. I'm totally new to this game. I did what I thought was best, and I called up a neighbor of mine that I know processes elderberries, and I said, how do you do it? And that's how we're going to do it today. So without further ado, we're going to get to picking here. All right, so we're here in my kitchen. I finally got time to process these elderberries. And I don't have all that many elderberries. So I just took a heavy-bottomed small pan here. They're easily all going to fit in here. I called my neighbor up and I got directions on what to do. And I find the easiest way to do this is to simply pull the berries with my hands right off of the plant. We're going to put just enough water in to cover the berries. And then we're going to cook them for at least 15 minutes. Just at a low simmer. And then you can add honey. Some people add cinnamon, some people add cloves. Like some people make their elderberry syrup all fancy. I'm just interested in getting kind of a concentrated elderberry juice that I can use for, well, simply for just trying it out, because this is the first year I've ever picked elderberries, and this is the first year I've ever really messed with them. So I just kind of want to get a taste of them. I think what I'm going to do is 2 or 3 rinses of the berries. So the first rinse will be the most strong, and then each time I rinse the berries, the juice will be less strong. But I'm going to put enough water in. This is what my neighbor told me to do. I'm going to put enough water in to cover the berries and then some. I just kind of want to break some of the skins to release more of the juice.
I don't want to just grind them into a pulp. It's not like I'm going to put them in the blender or something, you know, food processor. Pulling out some of the sticks as they float to the top. So this has been simmering for 15 minutes, so I killed the heat. And I'm simply going to take this off the stove, and I'm going to strain it. And I'm going to put the berries back in the pan. I'm going to add some more water, and we're going to cook even more of the juice out of them. So by the time I cooked the berries actually twice, I pretty much got all the juice off of them, and all that I was left with was just a gray pulp. So I got all the color, got all the juice out of them, and the juice itself, when you just try it, you know, alone with no sweetener, it's really bitter. It does have a berry-ish flavor, but it is very bitter, so I'm going to add quite a bit of honey to this while it's still warm. I don't want to cook the honey because I don't want to lose any of the health benefits of the honey, but I'm just going to put, like, I don't know, maybe like a cup of honey in there. So we'll stir that honey in real good. What's really cool about this honey is from my neighbor, Travis. He lives just down the road. It's from his bees. I actually bought as much honey as I possibly could from him this year. And because our theory is that he actually lives close enough to me that some of the pollen for the honey could have actually came from this property. And since these elderberries came from this property, I'm not a bee expert. I don't know if they pollinate elderberries or not, but there's a good chance that the bees that made this honey could have pollinated the flowers that made these elderberries. So just makes this 100% local, which is just really, really, really cool. Well, not bad. Not bad at all, considering I got almost all this from one plant. So this is just honey and elderberry juice, ladies and gentlemen. Very good. It's a little tart. It's a little bitter, but the sweetness from the honey cuts that. And yeah. So, there you have it. There's elderberries.
Well, I would like to name a few honorable mentions that didn't make it in the last video or this video. Several of these I've had. In fact, I started my wild edible journey just like a lot of other people, and that was with dandelion. I used to make a lot of dandelion tea. I still do from time to time. I pick the tender dandelion leaves and I put them on my salads. The entire dandelion plant can be ingested, and I'm probably going to do an entire video on all the different things you can just do with dandelion. Garlic mustard. Big thanks to Adrian, my Morel Madness, for teaching me all about garlic mustard. It's one of my favorite springtime wild edibles. The honey locust pods. Honey locust trees are the trees with all the thorns coming out of them that you see in the Midwest. Well, they have a seed pod that's kind of an elongated bean-looking thing. That has a sweet honey-tasting substance in it. It's really good. I've had it several times. I really like it when I can find it. Plantains. There are two different kinds of plantains. We'll start with broadleaf plantain. And there's also narrowleaf plantain. Both of these can be enjoyed on salads, stews, about any way you want to cook them. Plantains. I'm personally not a big fan of them, but I do chop them up and put them in salads from time to time, and put them on like tacos. I find they were really good on tacos. Something that's very interesting about plantain is you can use plantain on cuts and sores and bee stings and stuff like that, bug bites, by simply making it into a paste. Take like a mortar and pestle, you know, and take a rock or something and mash it up into a paste. And some people chew on it, and that could be debated if that's healthy because you're incorporating saliva into it. But you take that paste that you make with it, and you can apply that to different bug bites and wounds for its healing benefits. Mulberries.
that's something that I've really enjoyed over the years. A friend of mine, neighbor down the road, has several mulberry trees. We used to lay a tarp out underneath them and shake the branches and get as many mulberries as we could, and I'd make a big batch of mulberry wine. Gooseberries. I had the most amazing gooseberry pie this summer. I got it from the farmer's market. It was absolutely amazing. Gooseberries, see those quite a lot around here. Dewberry. My dad actually recalls there being quite a few more dewberries around the area, and I found some plants last year, but they were only very small. They were in an area that we mow over all the time, so maybe if I get the chance I'll try to transplant some towards a timberline somewhere and give them a try, but never had a dewberry, but it is a wild edible that does grow around here. Wild grapes. Wild grapes I've seen growing quite a lot around here. We used to like to take the little thing that looks like a snake tongue off of them, and if you bite into it, you can get just a little bit of a grape flavor. But you can definitely cook with and use the wild grapes to make wine and different things. Maple seeds. So the little helicopters that you see flying down from the trees in the spring are maple seeds. And inside that little helicopter is a little bean, and that little bean is edible. Again, I'll touch more on that in a future video. There are some other things that I haven't tried, one of which is wild lettuce. I just don't have quite enough information on wild lettuce yet. Another thing is milk thistle. I have never tried milk thistle, but it has a lot of very medicinal properties to it, so I'm excited to give it a try down the road. Here's kind of an odd one. Hedge ball seeds. I have a lot of hedge trees, or Osage orange as some people know them. I have a lot of hedge trees on the place where I do most of my camping and bushcrafting, and if you spend the time, it takes a lot of time, but if you spend the time to get the seeds out of them, you can actually roast those seeds and they're very good. Wild onions. That's something that I have never personally ran across, at least not on the properties that I frequent. I just have not ran across it, but I do hear stories of people finding wild onions. Another one is stinging nettle. I have just never seen stinging nettle in this area, but it is a very common medicinal wild edible. And last but not least, so we can't forget purslane. Purslane is a plant that you might see growing out of the cracks of the sidewalks, but it is known for its medicinal qualities, and it's supposed to be very good for you. Alright, well, I'm sitting here in my studio editing this video down, and I'm just amazed at how many wild edibles I am aware of and know about already just in my short time doing this in the bush thing. I want to say thanks everybody for watching these videos, and I hope you've learned a thing or two from my wild edible series. This is part 2, and I just want to say again, don't use this for identification purposes. The only thing I want to do is quite literally plant a seed in your head that gets you started thinking about wild edibles, and then you go do the research. Because here in southern Iowa, in the Midwest, there is food all around. And I know I left some out. I know there's tons of food. It's kind of like an iceberg. I've only touched the tip that's sticking out of the water. So there'll be a lot more to come in my bushcrafting and camping videos. I'll try to cook more and more as time goes on with wild edibles. So anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you next time in the bush.